Here we go.
For my first ever official guest on this show, I thought about Michael Jordan. I thought about Tom Brady, but there was no doubt in my mind who my first official guest ever on this show had to be. This man. I don't even need to say his name, but nobody in my lengthy career has meant as much to me as this man has. I've said many, many times, over many years, he became my brother, and it is now an honor and a privilege to be back on the air with this man for the first time since June 22nd of 2016. Did you miss me, Mr. Smith?
What's going on, Big Time? What's up, Skip? How you doing, man?
I thought you'd give me a big hell no, I didn't miss you.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. What's going on, man? Long time. How you been?
I'm probably not as great as you are, because we got to start with congratulations to you. Mm-hmm. Big new deal. What did that deal mean to you?
Very humbling, to say the least. Very few people on the planet Earth know, my story better than you. It was just announced. We're doing this interview just hours after it was announced.
Yep.
I reached a new long-term extension with ESPN. And, you got to start back to the origins and where it all began. And it all began with you. It all began with you and Jamie Horowitz, my former boss over at First Take, pushing for me to be on First Take, being limited to one appearance a week to start off that. And even that, you had battles just to get me on the air, and then ultimately insisting on having me on 5 days a week. And there's no way on earth that happens without you. There's no way on earth that happens without Jamie Horowitz. And so it starts there. I can look at my career and I can look at, what I've achieved as a newspaper writer and, being in radio and .com and television and NBA Countdown, which was once NBA Shoot Around and all of this other stuff. But we all know, to be in the position that I'm in today, to sign the kind of a contract that I signed today, it doesn't happen if it were not for First Take. And First Take never happens if it was not for Skip Bayless and Jamie Horowitz. And so I'm forever grateful. And I'm forever humbled, because it's a lot of luck that comes with something like that, to have people to see your talent, to care, and in your case, to trust. Because trust is a really, really, really big thing with you. Sitting across from somebody 5 days a week, knowing the kind of issues that you have to tackle, having to know that even without you knowing the words that are going to emanate outside of somebody else's mouth, because there used to be like a round table of potpourri of people that you used to debate against and what have you. You wanted me because of trust. And, the fact that you knew that there was going to be somebody that would bring the same energy, the same fervor, but most importantly, you knew that they weren't going to try to undermine you while doing so. That was a very important thing. You always have emphasized that to me. And I've taken that with me for the rest of my career. So I thank you, my brother. I truly do.
I appreciate those words. I wanted you because, to start with, you have the greatest gift of gab. That's what I call it. Just the gift on television I have ever encountered or worked opposite of or played off of. Mm-hmm. And you get this, you know this, and you got me from the start, and you knew I had love for you and respect for you. And from day one, you let me go back at you because you trusted that I knew where the out of bounds were. Mm-hmm. And I love and appreciate you for that, because it's rare that you can find that in this business.
Right.
And the first time it meant so much to me was, you probably won't remember this, but you called me. This would have been in 2014, maybe early 2015. You had come back to ESPN. We had been through, by that point, a couple of years on First Take. Right. And you had gotten your first big new deal with ESPN. Mm-hmm. And it was a good one for the time.
It was 2014.
Yep. Yeah, 2014. And I was you called me. I was on my way back to New York from Bristol to see my now wife, Ernestine. like a big sister to you.
Yeah.
And I was just so happy for you because you had worked so hard to get that deal. And now you've worked even harder and you've taken it up and up and up, and you've done nothing but great things for the state of this industry that we're in. And I appreciate you for that.
Thank you. It's been a climb. It's been a struggle. And I think that, sometimes you're just forced to sit back and reflect. And
Yep.
you think about the things that it takes to get to where we've both have gotten in this industry. And there's so many things that's misunderstood. There's so many things that people don't see. There's so many things that are said and stigmatized about us being in the chair. I mean, hell, you got our boy Dan Lebertar blaming
Yeah.
us for the industry, for crying out loud. You got stuff like that going on, and we come from a journalistic background, and so we have opinions. But A, we have educated opinions, and
Yep.
B, we have formulated opinions based on years and years of experience. And so, just like a player can lean on their experience inside the locker room, as a player, we can lean on our experience covering locker rooms and being in press boxes and having to travel and having to be courtside and having to be at games and listening to a player and a coach and a GM and an owner. I often laugh so many times when people say up there, yeah, what the hell do you know or whatever? And I'm like, well, I've been around for 30 years. Do you realize that the difference now compared to then is that I don't have to call anybody. They'll call me because they're trying to control spin that's disseminated over the airwaves. Why you think my head is down half the time on national television when you see the camera coming on me? Because I'm getting a text for every single damn segment, for crying out loud. The information just comes because everybody wants their perspective. And a lot of times people don't see that, even with the advent of podcast as well, and podcasting and all of this other stuff. People don't realize it's different for you all than it is for us who were journalists in the business before we transitioned to being pundits and commentators. Those sources don't leave. There's always more that come. And on top of it all, they're looking, it's not even so much about you being a special individual. It's the platform you have
Yep.
that folks are trying to have some impact with. And as a result, the information just comes and the perspectives come, which puts us in a very unique position. And that's what I see in
Yep.
the industry right now.
Yeah. Can you remember the first time you met me? Because I do think I remember the first time I met you, and you probably don't remember this.
I may not remember if it's in the newspaper. I know we met at Fox
Yeah,
in the late 90s. I can tell you that. I know that we were together on with Jim Rome and his show, The Last Word. I remember all of that.
that's
And
where it started.
yeah,
Yep.
that's where it really, really started. That's where I'm sure we ran across one another in the past. I was writing for the New York Daily News, a high school reporter, and then the Philadelphia Inquirer. Obviously, you had been everywhere. You was in LA, you was in Chicago, you was in Dallas.
Yep.
I forget where you were at that particular moment in time, but you were definitely making inroads into the world of television, doing sports reporters and other things. And you were making a big name for yourself, and we ran across each other, and they put us on the air together, and we went at each other straight up from day one.
Straight up.
But we didn't have a problem. We were like, hey, that was a great segment after it was over, and that's what
Yeah.
basically was the start of us.
So I first was introduced to you in the Chicago Bulls United Center media room. I think it was
Yeah.
1999. You were covering the Sixers. Jordan had retired in 98.
Right.
I went out that night only to see your man Allen Iverson play at the United Center because the Bulls were horrible.
Yeah.
And a sports editor by the name of Dan McGrath at the Chicago
right.
Tribune, where I worked, introduced me just briefly in passing to you
Yep.
in the media room. And I was immediately impressed because you were suited and booted. You were maybe the only reporter that I knew, certainly beat reporter covering a nightly, daily basketball team, who wore a coat and tie to games. And I was highly impressed with that. And I believe you later told me, or maybe it came out on the air when we had Larry Brown on, that Larry pushed you to go upgrade your wardrobe to cover
Yep.
the team so that you would create more respect in the locker room, right?
Well, it wasn't so much that because the respect was already there. What it was is that I used to admire. I thought that Larry Brown, Pat Riley, Chuck Daly, God rest his soul. I thought they were the best dressed coaches in the
Yep.
business. I mean, they just came suited and booted every single game.
Yep.
They were dressed to the nines. And I remember I was looking at Larry and admiring his suits and stuff, and he had pushed me to upgrade. And then Billy King was his VP of basketball administration at the time because Larry Brown had just arrived a couple of years earlier before he was promoted to GM. And Billy King was a sharp dresser in his own right, and he would tease me about it. And Aaron McKee, they called, nickname Blue. Everybody called him Blue because he always was wearing something blue suits and all this stuff. And Aaron McKee is one of the best dressed dudes in the NBA. He was sharp as a tack. And so I saw Larry Brown wearing these like suede shoes one time with a suit. And I was like, what's that, coach? And I said, I'm going to go to the mall and get me a pair of shoes. And I drove down to King of Prussia because Pat Croce was the president of the 76ers at the time. And I went to King of Prussia and I came strolling down the stairs and there was somebody there at the bottom of the staircase. And I was getting ready to ask him a question. Where's the shoe department? He said, Stephen A. And the guy says, I'm such and such. Pat Croce and Larry Brown told us to expect you. I said, excuse me? And they said, here's a bunch of shoes. And I was like, what? And I looked at it and I said, okay. And so I was like, how much does this stuff cost? And it was shoes like $500, $600. I'm like, what? I'm not paying that money. That's too expensive. What the hell? I don't make that kind of money. And the salesman said, they said you would say that. And they told me to tell you, dress for where you want to go, not where you are. And I remember that I had family members that had told me that before in the past. And I said, damn it, I gotta pay this money. And man, I wasn't making that kind of money, but I dropped it on those shoes. And before long, the suit game followed and everything else came about.
Good. It worked.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned what Lebitard said to you. He also asked me on air about this, that you and I, from a period of about 2011 to 2016, ruined the television sports business. What was your response to that?
I told him, what the hell is he absolving himself from it for? I said, you want to talk about me and Skip? What about you? You had strong opinions, Lebitard. You sat up there and clowned around. You did a whole bunch of stuff. Why you acting like it was us? It really bothered me, when he said that, because listen, for better or worse, I think you could be hyperbolic. I think you could be crazy half the time. You know how I am with you. But I've always acknowledged the man mean what he says now. And I always tell a story of when you and I used to do old school, new school on Sunday mornings with the great Bob Lee. And I said, we were both in a bureau cam in New York City. And I said, Skip knows this story. Skip will tell you, he'll nod his head in affirmation. He knows I'm telling the truth. And I forgot what had happened. And Skip comes on national television and says, there should be an 11 o'clock curfew for athletes. Athletes shouldn't be allowed outside after 11 o'clock. And I said,
12. I think I said 12, but go ahead.
It was 11. It was 11, Skip Bayless. Trust me, I'll never forget the story.
Right.
And you said 11 o'clock. And I started screaming, how old are you, Skip? How old are you? So I'm sitting there and we're going back and forth and Bob Lee is having a blast. And I come out, we both come out of our respective bureau cams. And I looked at you and I said, that was some great television, man. That was really hilarious. The way I said, that was good for you to say, man, that's a good thing. And you looked around and then you looked at me and you said, I'm serious.
I'm serious.
Nothing good that
Dead
happens
serious.
for an athlete after 11 o'clock. And I tell everybody that story because I say, that's when I knew.
Yeah.
That's Skip Bayless. He's not playing. He means this stuff. He ain't laughing. He's not joking. He really, really means this stuff. And I said, and that's when I knew that if we were ever on television together, we would win, because I knew we thought nothing alike. And in the years to follow, as I've had different partners and different responsibilities and all of that other stuff, I've always told people, working with Skip Bayless every day, understand that took a load off me. Like, I can go out to the West Coast for an NBA Finals. I don't have to be at the morning meeting. Skip could. I said I was usually there, but I said I didn't have to be. If I needed mornings off, Skip had it, because he knew exactly what would work. He knew, I'll touch this subject. There's no way Stephen A is going to agree with this. I'll touch that subject. There's no way Stephen A is going to agree with it. I said he knew instinctually. You didn't have to ask. He knew. And that's what made us Us.
All right. We detonated for the first time when we got back together. This would be after Old School, New School, after Fox Sports Net.
Yep.
Jamie Horowitz brought you on to First Take as a permanent resident.
Yeah.
And we were right in the middle of the Tim Tebow run in 2011. And I can't have you on with me without bringing up my greatest moment in my career, which could have been your lowest moment in your career, was Tebow's touchdown pass in overtime in the home playoff game against your Pittsburgh Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Tomlin, that won the game for the then Denver Broncos. Do you remember that moment?
Well, first of all, I'll never forget it for several reasons. Number one, at the time, I mean, you know me. I mean, I'm happy, I'm good now, and all of this stuff. You know, I've been single all my life, and I had a very, very beautiful, sexy woman in my life at that time, and you know, I was having a really, really, really good time most evenings with her, Skip Bayless, and I would always make sure there was a little action going on. And Tim Tebow threw that damn touchdown to Demaryius Thomas. He threw that pass over the middle, that slant pattern, and that man scampered 80 yards.
He did.
You know, Ike Taylor chasing him futilely, I might add. And literally, I collapsed on the floor. And I laid there for over 2 hours. I mean, I didn't move. I was so damn depressed because, first of all, I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so I was really upset we lost. Secondly, I was upset because we lost to Tim Tebow of all people.
Yeah.
And last but not least, I knew what was waiting for me the next morning, and it is the only time in my career, I literally, after I finally got up from that living room floor and I was unable, I just was I was in no, I was just so, I couldn't eat, couldn't have sex, couldn't do nothing. I was just, I felt that it was just the most awful feeling I've had. One of the most awful feelings I've had in my career. And I remember spending like a legitimate 2 to 3 hours trying to conspire to come up with a way that I wouldn't have to come into work the next morning.
Exactly.
I mean, I was not joking. I was trying to, like, man, I can't call in sick. That's too obvious. Maybe I could get a flat tire. Maybe, I could, I don't want to get into a vicious car accident, but if I'm not going at a high speed, but not getting a car accident or whatever. So, I mean, I could show the picture of the car and I could delay going into the office. I was like, anything to not face Skip Bayless on this day. It was without question the worst day of my First Take career, without question.
So you actually thought for a moment about causing a car wreck on purpose just so you could miss work.
I mean, not a vicious one, but something
I understand.
Anything that would enable me to not be harmed, but would enable me to escape having to face you. That next morning, it was like Tim Tebow. I still can't get over what happened in that game. I still can't get over it. It was as a miracle. It really, really was.
And remember our video, All He Does Is Win by the great DJ Steve Porter.
Tim Tebow. It's time. Let him play. I was like, oh, damn.
You know what made the video fly were your facial expressions of exasperation.
Exactly. But it's all he does. Listen, all he does is win. All he does is win games. I mean, he cut it up nice, but it was like, what a nightmare. I mean, I still have nightmares about that day. Still. And I love you.
I know you do.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about current sports.
Yep.
I did see this the other day, and I got to ask you about it because I'm still not sure about it, but I think I saw that you came full circle all the way around and finally decided that LeBron is actually greater than Jordan. Is that what you said? Or do you want to?
Yeah, I'll make sure they got it right because Lord knows that in social media and beyond, they'll get it wrong. I have never seen a greater player than Michael Jordan.
Thank you.
At his peak. There is only one. He is one of one. But I've also never seen someone for as long as they have been great as LeBron James.
Well,
To
sure.
be from his rookie campaign to his 22nd year in the league, and to be as great as he has been, is just undeniable. I mean, facts are facts. Now, don't tell me that LeBron James at his best eclipsed Michael Jordan at his best. I'm not trying to hear it. I'm not trying to listen to it. I know what I
Okay.
saw with my own two damn eyes. It ain't happening. But um, Jordan gave you 13 years in Chicago, gave you 15 overall.
He
And
did.
LeBron is in his 22nd year, averaging
Yep.
25, 10, and 7. It is undeniable. You know, he wins Player of the Month for the month of February in
He did.
2022, just like he
Yep.
won Player of the Month in February in 2005. That's
He
20
did.
years
It's
apart, the man is
unbelievable.
Player of the Month. It's unreal. It's undeniable. So I do think that he deserved the respect to categorize it that way. But Michael Jordan will forever be my GOAT. I can't imagine seeing anybody that I would say would eclipse Michael Jordan, not with what I saw with my own two eyes.
Okay. Is it fair to say that LeBron is then the longevity GOAT or
Yeah.
king or however you want to
Well, I've
call it?
said that. I said he's the
Yeah.
greatest. He's the greatest. In the category of longevity, there is no greater person. There's no greater athlete than LeBron James. I will
But
totally concede that.
but we have to point out for perspective, LeBron has now played 585 more games than Jordan played because,
Right.
as you well know, Jordan's career virtually ended in 98 in Chicago. He came back
Correct.
3 years later
He
for
came back for an
2
ownership stake.
ceremonial years, sort
He
of,
came for an
right?
ownership stake in the Washington Wizards that went awry. That's why he
Yeah.
came back. It's the only reason he came
Okay.
back.
All right. So help me out here. People say I pick on LeBron, I overpick on him. I'm too harsh in my criticism, but I'm watching LeBron James in year 21 and 22 shoot the ball so much better than he did for his first 20 years of his career that it haunts me, it perplexes me, it deeply frustrates me that he was such a poor shooter from three and the free throw line. Like I did the average. There were 19 years before last year in which if you took the average from three of those 19 years, he was 31% from three. Well, you know, and I know by his standards, the greatest scorer in the history of basketball standards, that's pathetic. 31%. And I don't know why he couldn't have gotten better from three and especially from the free throw line for 20 years until now. I don't know what got into him, but he did get in the lab and put in the work to make himself a better shooter in his 21st and 22nd years.
Well, there's several incentives that point to that. Number one, when you can shoot, you don't have to work as hard to score buckets. And he didn't mind doing that as a 6'9", 250 to 260 pound juggernaut throughout his younger years. But now that he's eclipsed age 40 and you know, it's there's more wear and tear on your body, it's a lot easier when you can shoot the basketball from the outside than having to be a man amongst boys, even though he is a man amongst boys because of his physical prowess, obviously. You know, the bottom line is it's easier. That's number one. Number two, Anthony Davis was there and they had made a commitment that he was going to be the focal point of the offense.
Yep.
And so with Anthony Davis being who he is, that also encouraged LeBron James to shoot better from the outside because if anything was going to be done on the interior, primarily you wanted it to be Anthony Davis that was delivering those goods for you. So that's number two. And then number three, now that Luka has arrived in Los Angeles, I mean, when you even Luka's going to have the ball in his hand. So essentially, in football parlance, you're talking about LeBron James being a wideout. You're talking about him catching a deep pass, meaning that if you're Luka, you got the ball in your hands and you're such an outstanding passer. Just watch Luka; he makes some magnificent passes and what have you. You know, he's gonna find you. He's gonna find guys, and then you look at an Austin Reeves. He can shoot. You look at Connect. He can shoot. Okay, and so you see some of these. Gabe Vincent was hit key threes and stuff like that the other night. See all of this going on, and you've got Luka who requires double coverage. You're not single covering Luka Doncic. Okay. So because of that, you sitting up there, you throwing over the head passes to people like LeBron James, like others, like Austin Reeves and others. And LeBron James is getting more opportunities from the outside as well. So all of that plays a role. Plus, he went in the lab and worked on it. But all of those things contributed to him becoming a better shooter.
Okay. So what are you seeing so far, still pretty early on, from the Luka LeBron pairing? Do you like what you're seeing? Is it surprising you?
Excuse me. Not
Yeah.
only do I love what I'm seeing, I'm shocked by what I'm seeing. And Skip, to touch in your wheelhouse, when Luka had first arrived, and everybody was talking about what's Luka and LeBron going to do. Larry Brown, Hall of Fame coach, former Philadelphia 76ers, Indiana Pacers, and all that stuff. Larry Brown texted me, and all he said was, "Great players learn how to play together very quickly." That's all he said. He said, "When you're great, trust you me, you got great with about." I'm not talking about. He said, "When talk about talent, great basketball players, meaning guys
Yep.
with IQs, basketball IQs." He said, "When you have that, trust me, they learn how to play together quick." So I wasn't worried about them offensively. We were worried about them defensively because they were porous to begin with. On top of it all, losing Anthony Davis, having Jackson Hayes in the middle, and not much else, had you viewing the Lakers as undersized and wondering what you gonna do against Houston with a Shagun, against a Memphis with some of the bodies that they have, and
Yep.
in Jackson, and that big rookie that they have out of Purdue, and what are you gonna do against Jokic, of course, in Denver and stuff like that, and then you've got Oklahoma City with Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren. What you gonna do? And we asked those questions, and we didn't realize that J.J. Redick is proven to be one hell of a coach. I mean, he kind of knows what the hell he's doing. And we knew and we saw how efficient they were going to be offensively. Little did we know that over the last 7 weeks or so, in terms of efficiency, the Lakers are the number one defense in the entire NBA.
Yeah,
And
since
so
the trade deadline. Yep.
that's right.
Yep.
And so look, even before that, because it was like 13 games. It's like 13 out of the 21 games. So it was like a 7 to 8 game stretch before Luka arrived, and then Luka obviously arrived, and it hasn't compromised them anyway. And then all of a sudden, Skip, I go to a couple of games, and I start seeing things that you don't get to really, really appreciate on TV. Like, for example, Dorian Finney-Smith, Rui Hachimura, guys.
Jared Vanderbilt. Yep.
Jared Vanderbilt, right?
Yep.
Yo, Skip, these guys ain't 6'2". They're like 6'7", 6'8".
They are.
And yeah, it's not like they're not big as Jokic or whatever, but they have athleticism, they have strength, they have some size, and they have the quickness and the athletic ability to get out and defend the wings. So I saw them incorporate that strategy, fronting and backing Jokic, and then getting out to a Porter, getting out to an Aaron Gordon, getting out to a Jamal Murray and stuff like that. You're like, wait a minute now. This defense, and then not only that, I can honestly say this, and this is a big deal because I thought that Darvin Ham was a damn good coach. Took him to
So
the
did I.
conference finals the first
Agreed.
year, second year, first round, but both losses were to Denver. And I looked at Darvin Ham, and Skip, I've never seen the Lakers in the Frank Vogel era, in the Darvin Ham era, play defense like this. What I mean is they get after you. And the arguing and the sniping that comes to the bench when guys miss an assignment, you're seeing guys explaining themselves to a third or fourth assistant coach. It's like the accountability factor that J.J. Redick has created is symptomatic of who I know him to be from doing television work with him. He's detailed oriented. He's no nonsense. He doesn't mess around. And he's big on accountability. And he's got the team buying in. And that's what I've noticed. And I'm pleasantly shocked that their defense looks as formidable as it has looked.
Okay, I'm with you. There are certain nights I have seen Luka get torched by this player or that player, but somehow the rest cover for him in zone concepts. And Luka can steal the ball, a la Larry Bird, as you know. He can get his hands on balls in the passing lanes. He can disrupt. And so the mindset is still a defensive mindset, even though he can't shuffle his feet like some can. Even LeBron at 40, he is still moving his feet. He will lock in and lock you up. So to me, they're able to overcome whatever on-ball deficiencies that Luka might have, and they are becoming a force on defense, and I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth.
Well, this is the thing. I saw Luka about a week ago. He's on the perimeter, really, really trying to defend.
Yeah.
He's not spectating. He's not watching and looking at the four other guys and saying, get it done so you can give me the ball and score for you. That's not what's going on here. Everybody has bought in, and you see the level of accountability that J.J. Redick has fostered is what I've been impressed most. I saw LeBron James the other night asking one of the assistants, what defensive assignment do you want me to take right now? What do you want me to call? Who do you want me to guard here? You want me to do what you want me to do? You want me to do that? I'm not saying those things have ever happened. I'm saying they have never happened. I'm saying it's not as conspicuous. It wasn't as conspicuous as it is now. We see it now. And we see it, and we see them looking over to the coaching staff, which, by the way, has two former head coaches in Scott Brooks and Nate McMillan on the squad. These men know what they're doing.
Yep.
And that's what I've been noticing, and I can't say enough about it. I really can't.
Okay. Although JJ wasn't known as a defensive specialist with a defensive mindset.
Yeah.
And I don't want to leave behind Darvin Ham. I'm a fan of Darvin Ham's.
So am I.
I still believe if he were still in place in that chair that he could be doing what JJ is doing. But I can't take anything away from JJ as a first-time ever head coach.
Well, here's what you can say. I can certainly believe that defensively because that's Darvin Ham's specialty.
Yeah.
Offensively, that was not the case.
Yeah.
J.J. Redick's and L.A.'s offense is night and day compared to what it was with Darvin Ham. I expected it to be reversed, meaning they'd be successful because of their offense rather than their defense. I expected that. And I think the reason why we can't avoid giving J.J. Redick credit is because everybody that expected him to have any kind of success, it was because of what his mind would ooze offensively. That's not what's happening here. It's also defense. And that's where it can't be ignored.
I know, but Stephen A., he's got two Magic Johnsons running his offense now. He's got two basketball geniuses running his offense. Well, I don't know how much you need to coach offense with those two running the show.
You can say that, Skip, but Phil Jackson taught you this. Don't mess up a good thing. You can mess up something that's good.
No, that's true.
There is something to be said about you messing stuff up.
Yeah.
So we got to be mindful of that because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a rookie coach who's never been a head coach on a collegiate level, never been a head coach on a high school level, wasn't a head coach. I mean, he's coaching his son. Little league coach for crying out loud. I mean, getting ejected at his, I think his 7 or 8-year-old son's game. This is what we're talking about here. And we're talking about him going from that to coaching the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah.
And being a coach of the year candidate in his first year. That says a lot, man.
It does. And by the way, speaking of sons, you okay with Bronny being on the team and sitting on the bench and going on the road occasionally?
Well, listen, it is what it is. I mean, we all know that LeBron James is the greatest player of this generation. We can't deny that. We know he's underpaid because he deserves more money than he's getting paid because you got your cap and all of that other stuff and first and second and third aprons and he can't get the money he so richly deserves. And so and it nobody was shy about it. You had Golden State, Boston contemplating Bronny being a second round pick. And then, the Lakers get him. And obviously it was, Rich Paul took care of that and made sure he was going to land with LA because that's where LeBron wanted him. And so in that regard, because of the transparency of it is why I don't think we should really, really have a problem with it. If they tried to be slick about it and act like that wasn't happening, that would be different. Yeah. That's not what they did. And so because that's not what they did, I don't really have a problem with it. All I will say now is that now that that moment has come and gone, Bronny was doing very well in the G League. I personally think that Bronny has potential to be an NBA player. And I think that, with the success that he's had in the G League and learning the game from the greatest basketball savant of the modern era, which many consider LeBron James to be,
Definitely.
along with the coaching and tutelage and all of that other stuff,
Yeah.
I got a lot of confidence in him that he will be in the pros someday and that he will deserve it. It's just that now everybody knows what it is for the moment being, and some people are more receptive to embracing that than others.
All right. Fair enough. All right. Bigger picture. How far can this Laker team go with Luka and LeBron? Can they? I don't know what you think of
I
my
think they can win it
Oklahoma
all.
City Thunder, or can they get past the Thunder? Who
I
do you
think
like in the West?
I'm willing to bet they're going to get to the conference finals. Can
Okay.
they beat Oklahoma City? Yes. Will they? Not so sure. Shea
No.
Gilgeous-Alexander. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is a
Oh,
superstar. He's a
he's a
superstar without
truth.
question,
Yeah.
right? And the pieces they have around them, and the pickup of Alex Caruso and Hartenstein in the
Oh,
offseason, huge.
oh,
Because, Skip, I looked the other day, man, there was like 9 or 10 different defensive categories that Oklahoma City was number one in. Like 9 or 10 different categories. I mean, they were even number one in loose balls
yep.
acquired. I mean, it was ridiculous. Anything that had something to do with defense, they were number one. And so one could easily argue Luka, LeBron, and the crew, they ain't faced that yet.
No.
They haven't faced that kind of challenge. The flip side is that Oklahoma City is unproven. They're young. And you're going to have to go out there and show who you are and what you're made of. Now, we know Shea Gilgeous is going to do his thing. We saw him do it in the playoffs last year against Dallas.
We
Where was his
did.
help? Where was his help? He didn't have it. We know Jalen Williams could play, but he didn't have that great of a series. We know
Okay,
Dort and
but
those boys can play.
Stephen
They
A.,
didn't have
remember
it.
that game 6 at Dallas? It
Yeah,
went to the last drop, and
that's
Shea
true.
Gilgeous lost, to quote you, lost his damn mind, and
Yeah,
he fouled PJ in the corner on a 3-point
yeah,
shot and lost them the game, which he
yeah,
never, ever does.
yeah.
He's such a smart player, high IQ player,
Mhm.
and that's how close it came to them getting it back to a game 7 and in
Right.
OKC. So I think they got a
You're
little
right.
scar tissue that will benefit them.
But we all know that you're from Oklahoma City, and
I am.
we all know
Yep,
how you favor your Thunder.
I do.
Here's my disappointment in you.
Yep.
When are we gonna point the finger at Sam Presti? Sam Presti is a fabulous executive. I know that. But Skip Bayless, he got to close the deal. He got to close the deal, man. I'm gonna go down the list, and I'll probably forget a few names, but let me go down the list. Sam Presti, as the boss of basketball operations for the Oklahoma City Thunder, he had these 5 dudes together: Kevin Durant, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Serge
Okay.
Ibaka, Reggie Jackson. Okay, he had that going on together. Let's not forget Steven Adams. Let's not forget
Mm-hmm.
him. Okay,
Yep.
he had those players. Also, he's had Russell Westbrook with Carmelo Anthony, Russell Westbrook with Paul George, Russell Westbrook with
Did.
Victor Oladipo. You look at these players, right? Now you got Shea, and he clearly is exceptional at building a roster. 17 years and you don't have one championship?
Mm.
Not one? Come on, Skip. At some point in time, it can't be about being competitive. It can't be about just getting there. It's got to be about getting over the hump, which is why I've said over the last couple of weeks, I said, let me tell you something. Y'all call me crazy. But if I'm Oklahoma City and I got some picks, because they got everything. I mean, they just wiped the
It's
floor. I mean, the Clippers for the Paul George deal,
they did.
the Russell Westbrook deal. I mean,
Yep.
let me tell you something, man. With all the assets they have, if I got to give up a few of them to bring Kevin Durant back home and pair him with Shea and pair him with Chet, Hartenstein, Caruso, and those, if I got to bring that brother to Oklahoma City to deliver me a championship, I can't use all the assets anyway if I'm Sam Presti. But at some point in time, we got to at least ask, when you going to close the deal? Instead of allowing him to just celebrate the fact that his teams are competitive and in the mix all the time. At some point in time, you got to close.
Okay, you mean you wanted them to go get Kevin at the trade deadline for draft picks?
Personally, I would have. I thought about that, but since you're the number one seed and you're rolling, and Hartenstein and Holmgren and Caruso are all there, I don't blame them for that. But my biggest deal is that if you don't win it this year, you gotta give up those assets and go get somebody like a Kevin Durant. You got to.
I don't believe he'll do that. And by the way, to defend him only on this score, remember when he had Durant, Westbrook, and Harden, his ownership, starting with Clay Bennett, wouldn't pay the freight to keep James Harden, right?
Right.
Because he was going to get a max deal.
Now, you remember that story, right? You know how much that was for, right? Remember that?
I do.
And
I don't get it.
$4 million. Yeah, that is a disgrace.
Yeah.
$4 million. I'm not talking about per year. Let's let the audience understand. It was $4 million total.
Yeah,
for James Harden's contract. And you let him walk out the door.
You did.
Inexcusable.
Okay. I believe they're going to win the West and at least get to the NBA Finals. I don't know that they can beat Boston right now because I still think Boston is better than Cleveland, even though Cleveland showed me a lot the other day against Boston. But I still think it's going to be Oklahoma City and Boston. If Boston prevails, I won't hold that against Sam Presti if his team gets to the finals because they are set up to be dynastic to me because that team is still so young. Chet Holmgren's still just a baby. And maybe you want to add a piece. I just don't know that you want to add a superstar piece to it because it has a college rah-rah mentality and all for one, one for all. And I don't know that they want Kevin Durant in the middle of that.
That's totally fair. And it should totally matter if you win.
If you win.
But when you haven't won,
all right,
then that's a different matter. Because what cannot happen, in my estimation, what I find grossly unfair, you can't keep knocking on the door, and that buys you security. At some point in time, you got to win. Everybody else got to win. You got to win too.
You do. Yeah. Well, he wins in the offseason. He just hadn't won during the season.
Oh, damn it, during the season is what matters.
Okay. It is in the end. All right. Speaking of not winning for the last 30 years, my Dallas Cowboys haven't even made it back to an NFC Championship game in 30 years running. And I had to stomach a quote from our man Jerry Jones the other day that said, "I'm not looking at free agency as a place to fill voids." Your thoughts on Jerry saying no to free agency?
I'm worried about Jerry.
Yeah, me too.
I think I'm not going to accuse him of being Biden-like, our former president. But
go ahead.
There is slippage that I know. I mean, how do you not go out and get Derrick Henry? How do you not negotiate CeeDee Lamb's and Dak Prescott's deals early enough so it's not chomping up extra cap space?
Good questions.
Makes no sense whatsoever. Now, over the last few days, they've cleared about $57 million in cap space, if I remember correctly, which is a good thing. That's good.
Is it?
That's good. That's good. But what are you going to do with it? You got to go out and get people. And that's what we got to wait to see what Jerry Jones does. But the Cowboys haven't been in the NFC Championship game in 29 to 30 years, actually.
Yep.
It'll be 31, by the way. Get that out your system. Ain't no way in hell they get into an NFC Championship game.
Agreed.
So since that's your reality, Jerry, and I've asked this question, where's his children? Where's his children at? I mean, what purpose do you serve? I mean, if you are a Stephen Jones or somebody, well, what's up? I mean, that's your daddy. I mean, he can't just be saying anything. And you know what? You can't be sounding like him. You can't be at the NFL meetings and you sounding like you your daddy. In terms of saying the same thing your father's saying, that ain't making much sense to Dallas Cowboy fans. Not smart. But that's what they've given us. So it is what it is.
Stephen A., Howie Roseman went out 1 year ago right now, and he won the draft, and he won free agency, more important. And quietly, the new regime in Washington a year ago was right there with Howie Roseman in dominating free agency. They completely on the fly rebuilt their team around a quarterback who, as you well know, became the greatest rookie quarterback we've ever seen in Jaden Daniels. And by the end of the year, Philadelphia was the best team in the National Football League, and the second best team by the end of the year were the Washington Commanders. That's what Jerry Jones is going to have to deal with. And don't let Shedeur Sanders fall to the New York Football Giants, because that would be something else you'd have to deal with for twice a year.
Do you really want that? I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to wish that on Shedeur Sanders. He might be better off in Vegas with Pete Carroll.
Okay, well, you could be right.
But I don't like Brian. I don't like, but Shame. I know his name is Shane, but I call him Shame, the GM for the Giants, because he should be ashamed of himself for what he did with Saquon Barkley. So I call him Shame, and I don't know if I want to go into an environment like that personally. That's how I feel. But I wouldn't want a rookie in that kind of environment. I don't trust the GM.
Okay, but you do have a Neighbors who's that worked. I think he's a player, and I think you could build around those two for sure. But I don't know what if Deion wants his son in the Big Apple, or he may want him in Las Vegas. That would be great too. But my point is, at least you got to deal with Philadelphia and Washington for a long time, because Jalen Hurts ain't going nowhere, right? And he will only work harder and harder to get better and better. So I'm looking at Jerry, and I'm fearful that he's gone a little around the bend, just not quite all there. I have used the Biden-like analogy, and I'm not sure his children or his wife can unseat him. He is in charge, and 82 years of age?
82.
Yeah. Okay. And they're just going nowhere slowly, because I've always liked Dak, but I've never loved Dak. And as you well know, he's 2-5 in the postseason. And last year he was the highest paid player in the league. They're going nowhere. And I love CD, so he got his money. But if you give Micah the most money any defensive player's ever had in the history of pro football, he doesn't have enough Lawrence Taylor-like impact to measure up to that kind of a deal to me. So where are you going? How are you going to threaten Philadelphia or Washington? Because I can't see it.
That's fair, Skip. But Micah's the heart and soul of the Dallas Cowboys. He really is.
Well, then maybe that's the problem. I don't know.
I'm just saying, well, he's been injured some, but when he's on the football field, he gets after the quarterback and he makes things happen. And their defense looks significantly more formidable. So we can't ignore that either.
Okay, but Stephen A., do you remember the first 3 home games this past year? Remember what New Orleans went in there and they became a bad football team, but it was over by halftime. The Baltimore game was over by halftime. The Detroit game was over by halftime.
Ran down their throats. Yeah. I mean, you had you have Kamara running the football. You had Derrick Henry coming in running for nearly 200 yards.
It's ridiculous.
When you're running the football down their throats, what can you do?
I don't know. So what is it possible they're going to become the worst team in the NFC East?
Yes, it's possible. I still think it will be third place, but it is possible that the Dallas Cowboys could just nosedive and stink up the joint to the Cowboys.
It is. Yep.
The Cowboys.
All right. Okay. Last quick sports question. Are you ready to admit that Aaron Rodgers has always been a little overrated?
No, I'm not ready to admit that. I don't think that he's overrated as a talent. I think that in his prime, he was a bad man. That's what I stand by it. I ain't backing up from that. But I do think that sometimes, you know how they say, the higher you climb up a tree, the more you show your ass. And I think that him wanting to be somebody that wasn't just a quarterback, but that was running the organization, et cetera, he found himself in a position where he was burdened with the power that he swore he wanted but didn't necessarily want. And so as a result of that, he was in over his head because he wasn't paying attention to detail and prioritizing things the way that he should have. But it doesn't take away from the fact that he's one of the greatest passers of the football I've ever seen. He's 4-time league MVP. He's absolutely spectacular. I think he's far from done as well. I think he's that lethal. He's that legit. He had a down year last year, Skip. Down year last year. And still threw 28 touchdowns, just 11 interceptions.
Okay. But your bad man the last 3 years in Green Bay when it mattered, when it
Oh, yeah,
counted,
yeah, yeah. I'm not absolving him from
he
that.
was just bad
I'm not
to
going to
me.
solve it. And 2 losses to the 49ers.
Yeah.
You can't score 13 points on a
Yep.
road team in a blizzard. It's your blizzard, damn it. You
It's your
wasn't
blizzard.
far in the cold weather and blizzards in
Yep.
Green Bay, Wisconsin. So he should have
Yep.
been able to handle it. The fact that he didn't is definitely an indictment.
Okay. And remember, it has now been 15 long years since he won that long ago, far away Super Bowl. And he was the MVP. And I give you that. Remember, that was a road wild card team that came from nowhere
Yep.
without a whole lot of pressure or expectation.
Mhm.
And that did happen, but it was 15 years ago.
Fair enough. No
All right.
argument there.
I think, to use LeBron's word, that he's washed, but we'll see.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I wanna say
All
he's
right.
washed, not yet.
Final question. I
Yeah.
read a lot about this. I got to get it straight from your mouth.
Yep.
Exactly how interested are you in running for president?
Well, listen, I love my politics.
Yeah.
In terms of just being a conscientious observer, reading current affairs, opining about it, that's fine. I have no desire to be a politician, Skip Bayless.
No.
I just agreed to a new contract with ESPN. It's going to pay me well. That is not the only opportunity. That's not the only opportunity I'm going to have. There's going to be other things that's coming down the pike that you'll learn about soon enough. I like my life, man. I'm not trying to mess it up, especially for no damn politics. These people will turn on you. They will backstab you at every turn. So I'm not trying to go that route. What I would say, however, is this. Skip, again, I have no desire to run for office. I think I can take them. I don't care who it is. I think I can win.
Yep.
I really do.
I believe you believe that. Yep.
That's right. You believe, and that's the right way to say it, because I don't blame you if you don't believe it, but I believe it. I believe that I could beat anybody in the Democratic Party. I believe that I could beat anybody that Trump puts out there, because he's not getting a third term.
No.
The Constitution's not going to allow for that, no matter how much he's trying to finagle it. And so I'm of the mindset that, fine. I can do it. I don't want to. I have no desire to, because I like my life. But I will confess to you, if my pockets were fat and I had nothing to worry about in terms of my quality of life and all of that stuff, and a whole bunch of folks clamored for me to the point where they said, "You're the one.
Yeah.
You're the one that we want. You're the one."
All right.
Like this, I would consider it.
All right. Okay, so the door is still cracked open.
Cracked open, but it's not me. I'm not qualified. I don't know all the issues. Hell, these foreign dignitaries, I don't even know how to pronounce half their names. I don't know this stuff.
Yeah.
But I do know what the American people want. I do know what they deserve, and I do know that if you put the right people around me, I don't have any problems making decisions about what's in the best interest of, whatever.
You won't remember this, but you called me once in 2009. You're trying to figure out exactly which way to go in your career. And I told you I was on vacation in Oklahoma City. And my wife, Ernestine, who wasn't yet my wife, was saying, we got to go eat. We got to see these people. And I said, no, I got to talk to my man, Stephen A. And I told you in that conversation, at some point, you need to talk politics because you're good at it. On the air, you need to either have your own show or become a featured guest on somebody's show. And you are slowly but surely, obviously on your podcast, you are doing that more and more. Yeah. And it is a real strength of yours.
Yeah, thank you so much. I enjoy doing it. I love sports, man. I never want to leave sports, but I never want to be limited to it either. I'm just not there anymore. If I didn't have other outlets, sports would bore me.
Yeah.
So it's really good. It's really good that I have these other outlets that fall in line with my professional career, commentary and things of that nature, because I know that I have a lot to bring to the table in that regard, and I'll have even more as I study more and I get more entrenched in it. But it's not going to be at the expense of what I do sports-wise, because I love what I'm doing.
Okay. So this time we just spent together did the opposite of boring me. It was a rare treat. I want to thank you for your time and especially for your friendship. And I will look forward to speaking to you again soon.
All right, my man. You take it easy, okay?
Okay. Thanks, you, Mr. Smith.